Good evening. The principal of Drummond Primary School in Southland, who resigned under pressure from the school board, has been cleared of all the complaints made against him. The Southland Education Board, the Drummond School Committee and the New Zealand Educational Institute said today the situation had been resolved. Sally Pears has the story.
The Southland Education Board said today the Drummond school situation had not been adequately handled, and the board says it will change procedures to make sure the situation doesn't reoccur. Drummond School has been closed since the beginning of the year, when Principal Lou Gwynn resigned after the committee told him his teaching methods were unacceptable. Since then, the pupils have been attending a nearby school. Today, the Drummond School Committee said they were acting on behalf of parents, and they've disassociated themselves from comments made by members of the community about Mr Gwynn. The New Zealand Education Institute, who banned members from teaching at the school, now feels the situation has been resolved. It lifted that ban today, and Drummond School hopes to reopen as soon as it gets new staff.
If house sales are anything to go by, Dunedin and Invercargill seem to be staging some sort of economic recovery. The number of sales in both cities over the past few weeks has surprised real estate agents, but as Lee Davies reports, they're stuck for an answer.
Although they're reluctant to call it a property boom, real estate agents say houses in the higher price bracket are selling particularly well. And stories about properties which sell within hours of hitting the market, at or even above the asking price, are not uncommon. One Dunedin company, which 18 months ago had 450 houses listed, now has only 150, and several agents say they haven't enough good houses to sell.
I think particularly in the bracket between 150 and 300,000, where at the moment, although there are quite a few good homes for sale, we are short and there is a good depth of market there for that particular price bracket.
In Dunedin, the recent tendency to sell houses at auction may also be partly responsible for the increased activity.
At 400,000, any advance on 4. I'll take another 10.
Peter Gilchrist says this follows the trend in cities like Melbourne, where more than 90% of properties are auctioned. It's a method which gives purchasers more than one opportunity to buy.
It used to be that the auction day was paramount when somebody was auctioning their home. Nowadays, the three stages, both prior to the auction itself, and then following the auction, are all part of an integrated marketing package that is proving successful.
But despite the buoyancy of the Dunedin and Invercargill markets, agents won't predict how long the present level of activity will last.
The name of the victim of last night's house fire at Waikawaiti has been released. This is where 35-year-old William McMurray died. Police say the cause of the fire has not yet been established. The Waikawaiti Fire Brigade was called to the Scotia Street house at around 12:30 this morning after neighbours discovered the house ablaze. Southlanders are helping out an international team planning to fly Tiger Moths from Britain to Moscow. A Southland aircraft workshop's making auxiliary fuel tanks for the Moths, which will make the trip in April as a build-up to Mrs Thatcher's visit to the Soviet Union. Bernard Buck with the details.
It's not every day that a call comes from the other side of the world for aircraft parts originally manufactured in Britain. But just before Christmas, two aircraft engineers, David Patrick and Colin Smith from Mandeville near Gore, were approached by a Tiger Moth enthusiast in Britain. He was looking for auxiliary fuel tanks for 4 Tiger Moths making a journey to Moscow. The two local men had set themselves up as restorers of old aircraft about 3 months earlier, and the Moth enthusiast had read about their project in an aviation magazine.
We have the drawings, and we are specialising in rebuilding the old aircraft, and using the original drawings, we have been able to construct these tanks.
Although the original auxiliary tanks were designed in Britain, they're seldom used there because of the short distances between airfields. The few remaining drawings available are here in New Zealand and probably came from a de Havilland workshop set up in Rongotai years ago. The auxiliary tanks add 10 gallons of fuel to the standard 19-gallon tanks. That means another hour and a quarter's flying time. Each costs about $1,500 along with mountings. David Patrick believes, long-term, there's a good future for old aircraft parts.
As these aircraft get older, parts are wearing out and corroding away, and there are fewer people around who are prepared to rebuild the old things and manufacture new parts. So
The flight from London to Moscow is scheduled for April, and with a bit of luck, could be the start of even more business for this Mandeville workshop 20,000 kilometres away.
The Dunedin City Council has given permission for Larnack's tomb to be restored, provided somebody can come up with the money. The Historic Places Trust says the repairs will cost about $180,000, but only $60,000 will be needed initially to make the tomb safe from vandals and the weather. They've suggested the money could be raised as a 1990s project, or it could come from the Lotteries Commission. If you've ever wondered just how the mail service works, this week's a good opportunity to find out. New Zealand Post's invited the Dunedin public to come and see for themselves. And as Bernard Buck reports, there's been a good response.
The guided tours give people the opportunity to see how the mail room works and have attracted a lot of interest. They start each afternoon at the very spot where much of the City Mail's posted, the Cheif Post Office. From here, visitors can see the letters being processed on the facing up table before being put through the post marking machine.
We know when we get it.
The machine also records the number of letters going through. Mail too large for the machine is hand-stamped. It's nearly 2 years since New Zealand Post took over the mail operation, and this is the first time it's run the tours.
As far as we're concerned, it was a good opportunity for us to show our customers just how we do the job for them, how we move the mail and how we process it, and it gives them a real insight into what our business is all about.
Once postmarked, the mail is hand-sorted into different destinations. It then goes into the familiar mail bags. Private bag mail is also dealt with. Fast post is handled in a separate section. It's first broken down into inland and overseas mail. One minor disappointment for visitors is that they don't see their local postie at work. The postie sorting area goes through something of a lull at this time of day, while the 46 posties are finishing their rounds. However, a few sorters are on hand preparing for the following day. There's a division for each street, along with the house numbers. And finally, a look around the mail loading dock, where the thousands of bags handled each day are received and dispatched.
A Dunedin artist who's been quietly making a name for himself over the past few years is becoming sought after in Australia. Steve Harris has been exhibiting work in Sydney and on the last 2 occasions has sold every painting in the show. Lee Davies found him at work in his Dunedin gallery, preparing 8 more paintings to take to Australia.
The prestigious Robin Gibson Gallery in Sydney is where Elton John shops for art, and it's where Steve Harris will next show his work. Right now he's working on 8 new ones for an exhibition there in July, and there's a good chance they'll all sell, possibly before the show even opens. The prices will range upwards from around 6,000 Australian dollars, although that's not necessarily his assessment of what they're worth.
The dealers put the price on the paintings, and I agree or disagree, but it's just a slow build-up over the years. I can look at a subject and just look at the life that it contains and say, yes, I want to paint that and bring out the life, show people that there's life in things that they take for granted.
I know how you pray, I see how you fast, but I also see children who wander in tears, see small fallen bodies starving in fear. And I see how they call you, but you heard their cries, to fasten your free and your lives.
For the past 5 or 6 years, Steve Harris has worked full-time as an artist. Now his work's of such value, he says he can barely afford it himself. But if the Robin Gibson Gallery continues to sell it so easily, there's no limit to where a Steve Harris painting might find a home.
And it seems to me you lived your life like a candle.
The work of Steve Harris. Coastal cloud made for a gloomy day in some areas, but there was sunshine and warmer weather inland. 3 o'clock today it was cloudy in Half Moon Bay but 15 degrees. Invercargill cloudy and 15, and for your carnival day tomorrow hopefully 18 degrees. Gore partly cloudy and 20, Balclutha overcast and 18. Dunedin was overcast and 13, and for the festival procession let's try and get to 18 degrees. Palmerston cloudy and 15, Oamaru cloudy and 13. 17 in Ranfurly, 16 in Lumsden, Queenstown partly cloudy 20, Wanaka partly cloudy 22,